Hello. I'm Brenda, and welcome back to my podcast, One Story at a Time. And this episode is for intermediate learners, okay? Today, you don't need to understand every word, you don't need to stop the video. Your goal is simple: understand what is happening, even when some words are unfamiliar. Okay, so understand even with unfamiliar words. Sometimes we need to guess. Story time. Pay attention to it, okay? Let's go. Dr. Thomas stood in the control room with his team of scientists and engineers. He looked calm, but inside, he felt excited and terrified. What they were about to do could change years of research about how the universe began. He looked through the window at the blue summer sky and took a deep breath. Ready? He said, and pressed the first button. Machines came to life around them. Set, he said, pressing the second button. Deep underground, a huge particle accelerator started working. Go, he said, exactly at 12 o'clock. For 1 second, everything went completely black. Thomas cried out in shock. Then the lights returned. Something was wrong. Check the systems, he ordered. But everything seemed normal. The machine was working. Look outside, said his assistant. The sky was no longer blue. It was darker than the blackest night. The sun was gone. The stars were gone. People screamed and called their family, afraid the world had disappeared. Thomas ignored the noise and checked the data. Nothing explained what was happening. They ran outside. Everyone at the research center was panicking. People used their phones and car headlights to create small islands of light. Then, after almost 20 minutes, the sun returned. The sky turned blue again. People laughed and celebrated. But that night, when darkness came again, there were no stars, not one. The world needed someone to blame. The newspaper said Thomas had stolen the stars. He was put on trial. They asked him what he had done. Thomas said his experiment did nothing. The machine worked. That's nothing? Asked the lawyer. Thomas tried to explain. There were no photons, no light. No one understood. In the end, Thomas pleaded guilty, not because he believed he was guilty, but because no one was ready for his explanation. As punishment, he was sent to work alone at an abandoned observatory in Chile. No one looked at the sky anymore. Years passed. Thomas kept watching the night. The moon was there, planets passed, but the stars were missing. He believed in a theory: if light travels at a certain speed, maybe darkness does too. Almost 9 years later, one night, Thomas looked up and he saw it, a small light. Twinkling, the first star had returned. And finished. Now, let's stop for a moment. Okay? You need to know what happened. So, let's check that. This is an active practice. So, I want you to answer out loud. Stop the video before my answer. So I'm going to make the question, you answer, and then you're going to hear my answer. Question number 1. What happened right after the experiment started? Are you ready for the answer? Okay. Everything went dark, and the sun and stars disappeared. Question number 2. Why was Thomas put on trial? Ready for the answer? Because people believed he caused the disappearance of the stars. That's why he was put on trial. Now, what was Thomas' real belief? Ready for the answer? That the stars were not destroyed, only hidden. I think this is the fourth question. What happened at the end of the story? My answer it is the first star returned after many years. Here is the key idea of this episode. You understood the story without understanding every word. That is not a problem. A lot of intermediates think this is a problem. Oh, I don't have enough vocabulary. That is a skill. At intermediate level, listening is about following ideas, not just collecting vocabulary like crazy all the time. If you wait to understand everything, you will always feel behind. That's sad but true. Yeah. If you follow the story, English is going to feel possible. So let's also clarify some important words from the story. To plead guilty is basically to officially say you accept the responsibility for a crime. The prosecution is basically the side in a trial that tries to prove someone is guilty. A particle accelerator is a machine that moves tiny particles very fast to study physics. A comet, a space object made of ice and dust that travels through space. A galaxy, a huge system of stars and planets. Twinkle is basically to shine softly and repeatedly. We have this music, brilha, brilha, estrelinha, twinkle, twinkle, little star. I have one last question for you, and I want you to answer out loud. Let's produce. Why do you think people needed to blame Thomas? Are you ready for the answer? Because it was easier to blame someone than to accept uncertainty. And your answer can be different, okay? This is an open ended question, so it's fine to have a different answer than mine. Meaning is more important than just matching beautiful words, okay? And today you trained an important skill, understanding without understanding everything. And that is how real listening works. If a story feels difficult, but you can still follow it, you are improving. Yes, you are. Repeat this episode if you want. Until next time, one story at a time. Bye bye.